Thank you, Mickey and Judy, for making time to
It,
talk about DMPD. I know this is your your creation, and you invested a lot, and I'm personally benefited a lot from this. Our first time when we met was in 2001, I think, many
yes.
years ago.
Getting old now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just wanted to ask you a few questions for you to share with the MPD and MPD leaders from different parts of the world, because you have a great, rich heritage. If you can share what inspired you to create the MPD and what was your vision for this ministry?
Well, that's a big question, and I think it started before we even came on staff, really. Uh, One of the funny things is when I found out that you had to raise your own support, the first thing that came in my mind, well, God must not be calling us to this organization. So that's where I was starting. About 2 years into being on staff, our regional director, at a meeting we were having to all the staff there in his region, he said, "Does anybody have any ideas on how to raise your support?" Because at that time, there was no training on how to raise support. Campus Crusader decided there needs to be some training. So he said, if anybody's got anything or if you can write up anything, turn it in to me. Well, I had written up just some notes for myself that I could read each time we went out to raise support to remind me of what worked and what didn't work and that kind of thing. So I just handed it in my notes. I said, this is my basic thinking on it. Well, he took it out to our headquarters and they had this meeting and he came back and said, Mickey, they accepted your way. So that was kind of the beginning of me getting interested in it. But I didn't think much about it because, I had it. But I started thinking about other staff that really needed it because somebody had helped me at the beginning. And the help was simply after Judy and I had our meeting and we were accepted on staff. As I was walking away, he had tapped me on the shoulder and he said, uh, you know, keep at it, raising support. Don't give up. That was the training. So, but that probably made a huge difference, just that one thing. Another thing I think about is it really got it going, DMPD, was other people giving me a vision, really, in a way. For example, I got a call one day, and it was from a guy named Mark Lloyd, still on staff, great guy. And he said, I travel a lot in other countries, and I just got back from Brazil. Well, the country director in Brazil was a good friend of ours, and he said, could you train our staff? So we had done that. And when Mark went down there, he said, how's support of your staff? And he said, it's great. And he kind of looked at him, am I hearing right? This is not what I hear anywhere. And he said, yes. He said, well, what happened? And he got out a chart and showed the sport was just going along here, barely getting anywhere. And then all of a sudden it just zoomed up. And he said, what happened there? And he said, well, just call Mickey Booth. Here's his phone number, and he'll tell you about it. So I got a call from Mark, and he lined up a meeting of about 30 people at our headquarters to hear about this and ask questions. And that's where it really started. Dave Beeler was at that meeting. That's how I got in touch with him. He's such a huge part of this, making it happen. And then there was a guy from
Carlos
from
Mexico.
one of our
He
staff.
was our first guinea pig.
Right. And he said, can you come down and do it in Mexico? But just that's the way it started.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. What was the most rewarding moments for you as you
Mhm.
have seen staff around the world implementing and teach
Yeah.
DMPD?
I can't say I can't think of much of anything. Mainly, just getting to know the staff around the world, really as friends, not just as other staff around the world. Uh, but really, there was one thing that popped in my mind, and that is a young couple. I think they'd been on staff maybe 5 years. At the training in Brazil, that first training we did, they got up and shared. They said our country director doesn't know this yet, but we're going to tell you. my wife and I were planning on letting him know in about a week from now that we were going to be leaving staff because we've been struggling with support all this time. We just don't have enough to live on. And he said, after this, we've already made the decision we're not leaving staff. And I think back to that time a lot. That's probably what motivated me to keep on doing this, the realization that so many staff might be leaving just because of the sport. And that didn't happen. That didn't need to happen.
And of course, this was a point where I enter in some because I have a good situation because I'm the side person. And there were so many people that we met, I will tell you. They were wonderful. And I met a girl in China. We just become friends. And she ended up being the girl then that did a lot of the meetings that we went to in China. And she eventually got married and left that particular job. But that was the way it was everywhere. We got a chance to meet people. And it was just in the meeting of people that we are able to have this kind of influence, I think.
What were some of the biggest challenges you encountered while teaching and implementing the MPD across different cultures, and how did you navigate these challenges?
One of the biggest challenges was getting the leaders of those areas to understand what it even was. So we would always take a day, if they were willing to take a day together to learn what it was, we could explain it, they could ask all their questions and that type of thing. That was fairly challenging because we didn't necessarily know how to explain it the way we should, but we learned over time. Another kind of a thing I'd say was just realizing that every culture is a little bit different, and yet at the same time, we're really a lot hugely alike. When people are people everywhere, they just have a different culture. What we did to begin with, we made what we call 21 principles of DNPD. So these are the 21 things that make it work. Those can't change or it won't work. So how do you apply those 21 things to every individual culture? Because it might be a different way of going about it. The way we did that was the first time we ever had a DNPD training in a country, we would get about 6 or 7 of the staff that were kind of catching on to it more quickly. And after about a week, we got them in a half-a-day meeting going over these 21 principles and saying, okay, does this be done in some kind of different way here? And that accomplishes the same goal.
What advice you would like to give to the next generation of DNPD, MPD leaders who is being in this training and they carry forward the DNPD strategy? So what advice you would give them?
Well, I would give them the advice to if they hadn't been to a good training in a long time, to go to one themselves and raise their own support using DNPD. But the biggest thing really is simply that not thinking this is some kind of method that works. It really, and we need to put more and more focus on this all the time. The horse is made ready for the day of battle, but victory rests with the Lord. God's doing it. And that's the best thing about it to me. I think I don't know any staff that have ever said, I just felt like I knew how to do it, so I got out and did it myself. They just realized that we've got to trust God. If God's called you to this movement, He's going to raise the support for you. And He wants you to go through this experience so you'll learn to trust Him, and you'll see things happen that you know you couldn't have done it yourself. So that's what we need to do, is really put it in God's hands, trust Him, get out and do the work. And it's such a blessing in people's lives.
And the other thing that I would take note of is, when we go to places, there are people that are really scared. They are scared to do it. And I can understand that because I think I'm a little scared too. When you do it as a group like that, like we did, they were able to gradually relax a little bit and be better because they were relaxed with friends that were helping them. So as we began in our 8-day proportion that we're there, they could see that they were going to slowly get better. And so in those 8-day meetings when we were there, we saw the people relax and trust God. Was that because some of them really weren't ready to trust God until they relaxed enough to be able to say, this is God's work, not my work. As we see people now, even at Christmas, we had somebody that sent us a lot of money, and we passed it on to other people because this was a guy in Dallas that we became his friends. And that's what happens when you learn what you really learn, that these people that are there, when we first started, well, we did them so we could do this. And then it becomes, these people. They love you and they trust you and give you the money that they've been saving. And it's for what purpose? To reach the world for Christ. That you see other people want to reach the world for Christ too.
Thank you so much, Mickey and Judy. Thank you for your heritage, rich heritage that you left to me personally and to all of us. Thank you for your sacrificial love, care, and really work in ministry all many years in different parts of the world. So I appreciate your impact in our lives, and may God bless you.
Thank you, Eugene.
Thank you. Thank you.